Clean hydrogen becomes critical, U.S. industrial infrastructure. Clean hydrogen is often discussed as a climate solution, but its more immediate relevance lies in its role as core industrial infrastructure, one that will increasingly shape U.S. competitiveness, trade access, and manufacturing resilience in a carbon constrained global economy. Clean hydrogen's role in the U.S. industrial system. Hydrogen is already deeply embedded in the U.S. industrial system. Roughly 10 million metric tons are produced each year, primarily for petroleum refining and chemical production, such as ammonia and methanol. These processes underpin energy, agriculture, and manufacturing supply chains, yet they rely largely on production methods that release substantial greenhouse gas emissions. As global markets begin pricing carbon into trade, that emissions profile is shifting from an environmental concern to a structural economic risk. Clean hydrogen, defined under federal standards as hydrogen produced with significantly lower life cycle emissions, represents a modernization of existing systems rather than a wholesale shift to a new energy model. The question facing U.S. industry is not whether hydrogen will continue to be used, but whether production, transport, storage, and manufacturing infrastructure can be upgraded quickly enough to meet emerging carbon requirements. Trade and supply chain constraints. Trade policy is accelerating that transition. Carbon-based border measures are increasingly tying emissions intensity to tariffs and market access. Hydrogen-intensive exports, including fertilizers, ammonia, steel, and emerging fuels for aviation and shipping, must meet tightening carbon thresholds to remain competitive. In this context, clean hydrogen functions as trade-enabling infrastructure, allowing U.S. spent products to move through carbon-screened markets that are rapidly becoming the norm. Manufacturing capacity represents a second inflection point. Much of the equipment required for large-scale clean hydrogen production, particularly electrolyzers, is currently manufactured outside the United States. As global investment in hydrogen infrastructure accelerates, limited domestic manufacturing capacity introduces supply chain risk for a technology that is increasingly central to industrial strategy. Without targeted investment, the U.S. could become dependent on foreign suppliers for infrastructure critical to its long-term economic position. Workforce dynamics. Workforce dynamics further reinforce the infrastructure framing. Clean hydrogen does not require rebuilding labor systems from scratch. Many of the core technical skills, gas handling, industrial operations, pipeline maintenance, and safety management, already exist within the oil, gas, and broader industrial workforce. As a result, clean hydrogen offers a pathway to extend and modernize these capabilities, positioning the transition as one of continuity rather than displacement. Environmental performance remains essential, but increasingly as a constraint rather than the primary driver. Infrastructure that cannot meet life cycle emissions thresholds risks becoming stranded, not because demand for hydrogen disappears, but because markets and regulators reject its carbon intensity. Clean hydrogen shifts emissions reduction from a voluntary sustainability objective to a prerequisite for participation in global industrial and trade systems. The importance of investment. The analysis also highlights the importance of sustained federal investment in research, development, and demonstration. Continued innovation is necessary to reduce costs, improve efficiency, and expand viable production pathways. Early, coordinated investment could position the United States as a leading exporter of clean hydrogen derivatives, echoing the role strategic infrastructure investment once played in reshaping global energy markets. Taken together, the findings suggest clean hydrogen is best understood not as a standalone climate initiative, but as foundational infrastructure for a decarbonizing industrial economy. The countries that build it early and at scale will shape future trade flows, manufacturing leadership, and emissions outcomes at the same time. You've been listening to Sustainability Soundbites by Environment and Energy Leader. For partnership opportunities, please reach out to our team.